All right, so what we'll do is go ahead and open up Arena. Let's go into a new model space in Arena. And as usual, what I want you guys to do is let's do some, what do we do first? Yeah, we'll do some comments up here, right? So I'll grab my comment, programmer name, I already pasted it there. There we go. Double click on it. Project. We're going to call this one the, what did I call this one? Oh, crud. Inventory management is what we'll call it. I don't remember exactly what I called it, but we're going to call it inventory management. And we'll put the company, for our sake, is Dunwoody College. And last but not least, the date. And if you do fall behind a little bit tonight, don't be real concerned. You know, let me know if it's just a quick question or something. But I'll post this up on YouTube so you guys have a something to reference later on as you want. All right. Now some of this is going to make sense, some of it's not. I'm going to have two sections. Okay. I'm going to have one section in Arena that's going to basically be it's basically going to be the demand, meaning customers are going to arrive. They're going to take material off my shelf, and that's what's going to happen. Then I'm going to have another section in Arena that's basically going to scan the inventory and try to determine if we need to reorder. Okay, it'll determine that for us. So what we're going to do first is we'll start with the let me think about this. Let's start with the demand side. Okay. Just trying to think if we need any advanced processes. I've got mine open. I don't think we even need any advanced process. Yeah, we will need advanced processes. We may want to do some hold at some point. So let's make sure you've got your advanced process template open. If you don't remember how to do that, just file, template panel, and attach the advanced process template if needed. Okay. If you have it open, you'll see it down here, the advanced process template. All right, so first thing we'll do is we're going to use the create block. I'm going to move it down a little bit here. I might even make mine a little bit smaller there. There we go. And we're going to have customer arrivals in the create block. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll double click on the create block, and we'll call this customers arrive. And we will do an expression. And I don't know, we've done a whole lot of these. You remember way back to the night that we talked about distribution functions. We're going to use a uniform. So the expression will be a uniform, and it'll have a min and a max. And we're going to make that 3,7. So that means it's uniformly distributed. Customers are as likely to arrive at 3 hours as 4, 5, or 6, or 7 hours. Basically, the probability is equally distributed between 3 and 7 hours. And we'll call that good. So we got expression. Entities per arrival is 1. Maximum arrival is infinite. 0. I think we're good all there. Hit OK. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use an assign block. Now I want to show you guys two quick things here. If you look at the PowerPoint slide here, there are actually two ways, and we have not talked about this previously. There are two ways to initialize variables in Arena. Okay, the first way you guys are fairly familiar with right here. You guys have done this before. An assign block, right? We do an assign block. We create this variable, production. We set it equal to 0. That's assigning a variable in an assign block. And that's one way of initializing that variable, setting its initial value when I assign the variable. There's another way to initialize a variable, and that's where it can be done in the variable spreadsheet. And I'm going to do a couple of them that way, and I'm going to do a couple of them in assign blocks. But you can also do them in the variable spreadsheet. Let me show you where that is. If you go into Arena, and in your basic process menu here, you'll notice that you have variable here. Okay, I'm going to double click on that variable, and then I'm going to drag this up and look at the variable spreadsheet. So we've used, I know you guys last week you used the resource spreadsheet, you've used the entity spreadsheet. What do you use the entity spreadsheet for?
Pictures.
Yeah, we changed the entity picture in there, along with other things. We can change entity names in there too. That might be all that we've really done. We've used some of the spreadsheets in the advanced process menu too. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to create a couple of variables that can be changed on the fly, essentially. We're going to initialize them to a value, but when we use the process analyzer, we're going to be able to take those variables and try different things in them and run the model 6 different times with 6 different sets of variables, all in the matter of 10 seconds. For tonight's quiz, that would have been really nice. You know, rather than run into completion, looking for the maximum queue length, and then doing breakpoints for times, you could have done that in the process analyzer also. So there's a number of different ways. So what I want you to do is double click here, and just like Excel, we basically can create different things in here. And the first variable we're going to have, I'm going to call inventory. And all the inventory is going to be for us, and it's very critical right now that you are careful with your naming conventions here. You know, I saw it in the quiz tonight. If you go to name a queue and you use it, you know, if you look at that queue with a different variable name than what the variable's called, it's not going to see that queue. It'll still run the model, but it's going to say, oh, I'm looking for inventory with a little I. And it doesn't see it. It may default to 0, vice having a big I. So that's important. And then the initial value for our inventory, I'm going to click on that and I'm going to make it 250. So the way I did that was, you see where it says rows here? I can click on where it says rows, and I can set the initial value of the inventory. What do you suppose that's going to mean for us? That's going to be my starting inventory. Assume I have 250 in stock ready to go. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to create another variable, and this one I'm going to call target stock. Is that little r or big R? That's big R. Target stock is going to be my big R. I'm not going to call it big R. I'm just going to call it target stock. And for the first model we run, I'm going to set an initial value for target stock to something over 250. Maybe I'll set it to 500. Okay. We'll be able to play with these numbers later, as you'll see. Okay, so I've got inventory set to 250. I've got target stock set to 500. I'm going to put one more variable in here. And this variable is going to be called batch size. Okay, now we talked about this earlier in the PowerPoint. You have little r, which is your reorder point. You have big R, which is your target stock. And you have another letter. What was the other letter we talked about? Q. Q is my order quantity or my batch size. Okay, if I'm talking production, it's how many I'm producing. If I'm talking about going to the store and get toilet paper, am I going and buying 6 at a time or 36 at a time, or what am I doing? My batch size for this model, we're going to make 5. So we'll have a batch size of 5. So I just wanted to be able to show you guys, you could have also done this in an assign block. The rest of the variables we'll do in this model, we'll do, actually there's one other one I wanted to do. I did big R, I did little r, I did initial inventory, or did I do little r? I did big R, I did initial inventory, and I did Q. I didn't do little r, did I? What is little r?
Minimum.
The reorder point, yeah. The minimum, the reorder point. Let's do a reorder point, and let's make that Let's make that 100. So essentially, if I dip down to 100, I start production. Okay, I produce them 5 at a time. I try to get my target stock back up to 500, and my initial starting inventory was 250.
Yep.
And all of these variables are initialized in the variable spreadsheet now, is where these variables have been initialized. Okay. All right, so for the reorder point, we did 100. Yep, batch size 5, target stock 500, and inventory was 250. Okay. All right, so now let's go back into our model space here. I can just drag this down now if I want. Customers arrive, that's good. The next thing I want to do is I want to go to an assign block. Okay. And in the assign block, I'm basically going to assign 2 variables. One is going to be called demand, and one is going to be called total customers. Okay. So if I come into here, into the assign block, and I double click on this, I'm going to give this a name of customer demand. Now, what have we always used assign blocks for? Yeah, changing variables, adding to variables, creating variables, initializing variables. So we use it a lot the same way as you could do in the variable spreadsheet. We're going to actually create 2 variables here. I'm going to add a variable. And this first, so if you didn't see that, you got customer demand as my assign block. I'm going to hit add. I'm going to have a variable, and this variable name is going to be called demand. And the new value for demand is going to be uniform 50, 100. Uniform 50, 100. So what does that actually mean? Well, that means that the customer coming in on a uniform distribution of every 3 to 7 hours is going to come in and order some uniform number between 50 and 100, right? They might come order 50, they might come order 60, they might come over 75. They're going to order some value between 50 and 100. If I create that, hit OK, there's that variable demand, and it's initialized to uniform 50, 100. Now, before you do anything else, let's add another variable. In a assign block, I can add and initialize multiple variables. So I'm going to create a second variable. This one's going to be called total customers. Again, be careful with your naming convention. I typically, some people will use underscores in between their variables to call them out. Some people will use small case letters, and the next word will start with a capital letter. I think some of you guys, your programming guys, might be used to that convention. I'm just going to call it total customers because it's nicer for the report to see it come up as total customers instead of little total, big C customers, or to have underscores all over it or something. So for this, I like this convention. And then what we're going to do for a value is we're going to call this, every time one comes through, we're going to add one. So basically we say, I don't know, what are you going to do? Total customers plus 1, that's all. Yep. So the new value is total customers plus 1. So my variable name is total customers. My new value is going to be total customers plus 1. So now the difference here is the reason why I want to create this variable in the assign block is because every time an entity comes through this block, it's going to execute that code. Okay? I haven't determined how I'm going to use little r, big R, Q, any of that stuff yet in my code. But I know this assign block, every time a customer comes, I'm going to increment total customers by 1. You can see your variables right there. I can hit OK. I can also, if I wanted to go look, I could go into my variable spreadsheet. If I go in there, I'll actually see, guess what? Total customers and demand are in that spreadsheet right now. Okay? The initial values aren't in the spreadsheet. The initial values are in the assign block. Okay, so you don't have to worry about the initial values here. The ones that I didn't have an assign block for, I do have them set up with an initial value in the variable spreadsheet. Okay. All right, then what we're going to do is the customer is going to come in. They're going to have this demand associated with them. So the first thing you needed to do is determine whether or not you can meet their demand. What determines whether or not I can meet their demand? My inventory, exactly right. So if my inventory if it exceeds what their demand is, I can meet their order. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a decide block to look and see if I have enough in inventory to meet the demand. So I'm going to grab a decide block, post that in here, and I'm going to call this, I'm going to call it check inventory. Now, how many conditions do I need? Or actually, what type of condition? Two-way by chance, two-way by condition, n-way by chance, or n-way by condition? Two-way by condition. It's binary. Either I've met their demand or I can't meet their demand. Those are my only choices, so I'm going to do two-way by condition. And then what I'm going to do is an expression. And basically, somebody give me what you think the expression should be for this. Not in number and queue, because really we're checking inventory. We have demand, we have inventory.
It's going to be demand is less than inventory.
Yep, or inventory is greater than demand. Either one. So I'm going to do inventory is greater than or equal to demand. Now, the interesting thing is the only place that we have inventory is in that one variable that we didn't use in an assign block. We created the inventory block. What was the inventory initial value? 250. So as long as this first entity, I can tell you what, I know our first entity, the inventory is going to be greater than or equal to demand, because the demand is a uniform distribution from 50 to 100. So it's going to take me at least 2 full customers before I even start to dig into my inventory, right? So this is going to be true at least for the first couple customers. That third customer, I don't know. If all 3 customers come in requesting 100 and I don't produce quick enough, it's not going to be true. Okay. And what we're going to consider for today is we're going to consider that either we meet the demand and we completely fulfill the customer, or if we can't meet their demand, we lose the customer. I mean, if they call up and say, hey, I want 6 of these, and you say, hey, I have 4, then you can't meet their demand, you don't get the customer. It's a lost customer. May or may not be that. In some cases, you put in an order, you might partially fulfill the order, and then completely fulfill the order at a later time. But we'll consider that we either completely fulfill it or we don't fulfill it at all. Now, if we completely fulfill the order, what we need to do next is we need to update the inventory, meaning that their demand is some number, uniform 5100. It's going to be some number in there. And we need to update our inventory variable with the new inventory. What block do you suppose I would use to do that? Sign block, absolutely. Oop, got a funky line there. And any ideas what I'm gonna call this? Yeah, reduce inventory is a great name. I love it. And so we need to add. Oh, let me think here real quick. What's that? Oh, you can, yeah. Oh, I love it. So you can do inventory. The variable name is inventory. And yeah, so inventory equals inventory minus demand. What do you think? Would that do it? Yeah, so we take the variable inventory and we give it a new value, which is inventory minus demand. So if I'm at 250 initially, and the first customer orders 100, then I'm going to reduce it down to 150. And that's where my inventory is at now. Very nice. All right. Then we can go ahead and hit OK there. We'll continue down the, well, let's go down the other side of this for a second. I'm going to connect a few of these up too while we're waiting here. Anybody remember how we can keep our connection tool alive? Double click. All right. Let's take a look at the loss side. If we were to not have sufficient inventory, then it might be beneficial for us to count the number of customers that we lose because of that. You know, if we assume that we're going to lose a customer if we can't meet the demand, then it'd be nice to be able to count that. It's the same as what we've been doing. We're going to use an assign block. Same as we're doing all over the place here. Wire this guy up. And I'm going to call this I'm going to call it lost customer, customer lost, either one. Lost customers is what I'm going to call it. And then I'm basically going to create a couple more variables in here. So a new assign block where I want to count the number of customers lost. So I'll create a new variable, add a variable, and I'll call this lost. I'm just going to call it lost. And every time an entity goes through this assign block, I want to increment lost by 1. So lost equals lost plus 1. Every time a customer is lost, they go through this assign block, they increment this counter by 1. Okay? And I'm not done yet. I want another variable here. And I'm going to add another variable. I'm going to call this amount lost. And somebody tell me when I put in this expression what it is I'm tracking. Nope. And the reason you don't, let me show you that real quick. What this is essentially saying is variable lost equals lost plus 1 is what that's saying. So it's saying lost equals lost plus 1 is all it's saying. So that's your expression there. Down here? I'm not sure. I don't think it may throw an error at you. I'm not sure. That's a good question. It'd be something to try. So now we'll add in another variable. And this one's going to be called amount lost. So the first one was basically customers lost. And now you tell me what this one's tracking. Demand minus inventory. Exactly right. This is demand lost. Okay. Well, it's really not demand loss, so is it?
Potential sales loss.
Yeah, it's kind of potential sales loss. It's tricky here because you got to be careful with demand minus inventory because demand
Plus.
equal. Yeah, here's why I don't like demand minus inventory. You guys are all over it. The reason why is because we're not partially meeting demand, right? Either we're fully meeting the demand or we're losing everything. We're not losing part of the demand. So I agree with you. Amount lost equals amount lost plus what? Demand. So now I'm going to increment this amount lost. So yeah, this is a prime example. If I real quickly do this and don't catch this right now, Arena will run it all day long. It won't give you an error for this expression right here. It'll say, well, I don't see the variable. It must exist. There's a 0 in it. Fine, good enough. But it's not going to store it. So could cause you trouble down the line. So hit OK. But you'll know when you see amount lost isn't incrementing, you'll say, oh, it's something to do with the amount lost variable. Where am I using that variable? And go find the expression that's not working out for you. Okay? So now we've got a couple of those in there. The other thing you can do, I don't really like this. In my model, I also set the inventory to 0. I don't like that because that assumes, again, that we're exhausting inventory. We're not. We're either meeting inventory or we're not ordering. There may be 5 in inventory. I don't know. So I'm not going to set the inventory to 0. The model I did at home, I did that, and I'm kind of liking our model a little better than that yet.
Did you keep track of, in the reduced inventory side block, is that all you did, was reduce the inventory?
I just reduced the inventory, yep.
Keep track of the demand and any of that?
You could easily do that. You could say, yeah, we could add a variable. We could call it demand met. You guys can do this here. I'll watch this. So what he's saying down here is in lost customers, we kept track of the amount lost plus demand. We could go up here and create another variable that we would call demand met. And we could say demand met equals demand met plus what? Demand. Let's be careful. Yeah, that's correct. Because the only demand we're going to see down here is when an entity comes through, right? We're not going to execute this variable unless an entity comes through. So that looks good. That's kind of a nice little. If you've got demand, if you've got lost, we ought to look at met also. That's a good way to think about it. I guess I kind of did something in this block. Well, I'll show you another example here because I think we already did it. This is a little bit different than my example. In addition to using an assign block, you can also use a record block. So if I drag this record block over here, the neat thing about the record block is it's good for quick tally. If you want to quickly tally something, meaning every time something comes through here, I just want to tally it. What does tally mean? So it's like counting the days you've been in prison on the prison wall, right? 1, 1, 1. And then you do the little cross one. 1, 1, 1, 1. And you do the little cross one, right? If I go into this record block, I could call this something like tally amount lost. Maybe I'll do an expression. The tally name is tally amount lost. And I think, let me see here real quick. Expression, tally name. Not sure if I have to do, I think it probably, because I think you can also do a count here. And if you just do a count on the record block, you don't actually have to do the expression. Basically, every time it does this, it's going to increment by 1. So it tallies by 1 each time it does this. Another way to do the same thing. So this is my counter name, tally amount lost. Yeah, for us it's the exact same thing. It's just another way of doing it. And if you're just quickly incrementing by 1, this tally count is a real quick and easy way to do it. I'm a little worried, catch me here, I'm a little worried that later on this might cause, why would I be a little bit worried about this right now? I'm a little worried about this having the same name as that. Okay. There are occasions, and I don't remember on the record block if you can do it or not. So I'm just going to change that to amount lost. It may give you an error later on saying record block must have a unique name. Anybody ever see that before? If you ever get that error, it's because of something goofy like this. Okay. So I can tally this in the counter amount lost and yet call the record block tally amount lost. I think I probably would have been okay, but I can also change it. So that's just another example of that. All right, if we move over to the right just a little, I'm going to throw a dispose block over here. Okay. So now I have the dispose block over on the right. And what I want to do is I want to basically tell this is the demand. This is the demand management section, meaning we're getting the orders from the customers. We're looking at our inventory. We're reducing our inventory with the orders from the customers, or we're tracking the customer's loss because we couldn't meet the demand. But I also want to use the demand management section to trigger the production management section. So what we're going to do is, after we reduce inventory, we're going to go to a decide block here. And this decide block is going to tell me, do I need to restart production or not? Should I continue to just sit idle on production, or do I need to turn production back on? Okay, because I've gotten, what's going to determine that? What determines whether or not I need to start production?
Inventory.
Inventory compared to little r. Yep, you guys are all over it. So what I'm going to do is go into this decide block, and I'm going to call this restart production. And I used to do this all the time. I'll do it this time. Every time I did a decide block, it was always a question. You know, especially if it was a two-way by condition, I would always do a question, like it's yes or no. Should you restart production or not? Okay, so I'll do two-way by condition. I'll do an expression. Somebody tell me what you think the expression should be. Inventory. Less than little r. Little r was reorder point. I'm going to call it inventory. And I'm going to do less than or equal to reorder point. Now, one quick thing here. I'm going to take that out for a second, just to remind you that I'm going to hit OK. Yeah, it put a 1 in there for me, thankfully. I'm going to go into the expression builder, because remember, you can also do this in the expression builder. And by doing it in the expression builder, you have these variables set up. Where are they? Current value, thank you. Yeah. So I can go inventory less than or equal to reorder point. Now remember, what does this save us from? What does this prevent us from doing? Screwing up the syntax. Exactly right. So it's nice if you use expression builder. I saw 2 different people during the quiz today that had an error with the Q name. And boy, that you'll fumble with that, and you'll fumble with it. You think you got it right, and then it gives you an error. And the errors that it spit out aren't always, real easy to deduce what they're talking about. You guys are the ones that taught me this. I don't have to copy paste it. I can just hit what? Okay. Then I can drill into my expression and just paste it in there. Control V. Inventory less than or equal to reorder point.
You can just right-click in that space there as well, and it'll ask you if you want to create an expression.
No. Oh.
Why don't they have a button for that?
Wouldn't it be really nice if they just took that little expression builder icon and put it right here? I mean, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, you should automatically be, yeah.
I like that, though. Yeah, you are the man. We learn something new every night in here. I didn't know that. I didn't know you could right-click in there and build the expression right there. That's awfully nice. All right. So go ahead and hit OK. And now we're going to determine whether or not we can restart production. I can wire that guy up. All right. Now, what I want to do, and we did this. You guys remember when we did the hospital example? We had a 1. We basically turned it on like a light switch. Turn production on, turn production off. What we did with the hospital was on-call doctor called, on-call doctor sent away. On-call doctor called, on-call doctor sent away. We'll do, in our case, we'll turn production on, turn production off. we'll do that within a assign block. So we're going to assign another variable. I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to call this production status. And I probably could even take that a step further and just call it production on. I'm going to leave it at production status. I'm going to hit add, and I'm going to add a variable called production. And the new value of production is going to be 1. So if I hit this assign block called production status, then I'm going to set the production variable to 1. Okay. We got a little bit of wiring we got to do. I'm going to wire up the production status. I'm going to bring that down to my dispose block. And then I'm going to bring the false case down here. Okay. And if you didn't catch that, it sometimes draws lines a little goofy, but I actually had to draw it over to here to connect that up, but then it just draws it straight down. Okay. So if you didn't see that, just connect this false case up here. And the reason being is, if I don't need to restart production, meaning that my inventory is still bigger than my reorder point, I don't need to start production. I can just dispose of the entities. Or if I lost customers, I can just dispose of the entities. Okay. And then let's go up a little bit. How are you guys on the demand management? Everybody okay on this part so far? Okay. Not too complex of a model. But now we're going to come up here to our production. And I might even put some labels on this. I could put in some text here and call this demand management. Go to font. Uh-oh. This would be a very good time to do what?
Save.
Yeah, I would highly, anytime I see the spinning donut of death there, I like to hit save. It kind of is a reminder that, uh-oh. So I'm going to hit File, Save As. I forgot what my name was up here. What did we call this? Inventory control or something? Inventory management. So I'm going to go ahead and go to File, Save As, throw it in my Arena file folder, call it Inventory Management. We just, at this point, I've got a lot of work into this. If Arena was to crash, I would be very sad. I'm going to hit Save. The bottom part of my inventory management is called the demand management. Okay, this is the customers arriving, me updating my inventory, me determining if I'm meeting demand of customers or if I'm losing customers. The part up top, I'm going to click on this and copy it. And up here, instead of demand management, this is going to be called production management. I didn't have a name for it, but production management. So I've got demand management and production management. Okay. And then under production management, and what we'll do is we'll finish this part of the model. I'll give you guys a break. We'll come back and we'll do the process analyzer on it. I'll make sure it works while we're on break. So now up here, what we're going to do is we're going to, very similar to doing the on-call doctor, we're going to create an entity up here under production management. I'm going to go to create. But this is the part that people have trouble with. This is one entity that's going to be used as an off-on switch. That's all this entity is going to do. It's going to flow through, and it's going to toggle things on or off and set variables to 1 or 0. That's all it's going to do. So when I come into here, I'm going to, I don't know why I called it that in my example. I called it raw material, which is kind of dumb. Well, I guess it's okay. Raw material. And we'll do a, let's see here. Actually, you know what we can do? We can do an expression 1, entities per arrival 1, max arrivals 1. And we create it at time 0. So this is it's kind of strange. We're going to create one entity at time 0. And we're going to feed it into the system. And we're only going to create one entity. But what we're going to do is we're going to allow that entity to come back and cycle itself back through and recycle and reinitialize variables as it's coming back through. So expression 1, entities per arrival 1, max arrivals 1. Really, the expression up here in the hours, they really have nothing to do with anything. Because what's going to happen is I'm going to get one entity, only one entity, at time 0. And that's all I'm going to get. Okay? I'm calling it raw material, which is kind of strange, but you'll see what I mean here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to a hold block. So under your advanced process menu, you're going to go to a hold block. And what that hold block is going to do for us is we're only going to allow this entity to go out and start production when what? Which is determined, you're right, which inventory is less than little r, which we've determined down here by what variable? What variable did we set? With production status. So right here we set production status. We set production to 1. So up here, we're going to hold this entity until. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to call it, shall we produce? That's kind of a goofy name. And we're gonna scan for a condition. Can I click in here too? Oh my God, you showed me the coolest thing ever tonight. All right, so shall we produce? And then I'm going to go to build expression. And I'm going to go to variable, current value, production. And what am I going to look for? Yeah. Now, what's the difference between me typing equal to 1 and you'll notice they don't even offer me equal to 1 up here, and me typing equal to 1? What's the difference? You got it. I'm initializing a variable to 1. I'm setting a value into the variable, or in this case, this is a Boolean expression saying, is production 1? Yes or no. This is almost like a decide block, isn't it? I mean, this essentially is a decide block. The only two values are yes or no. I'm going to look at the production variable and see if it's equal to 1. And there it is, right there. Production equals 1. So we will scan for that condition, and we will only allow it to leave the hold block if production has been turned on, meaning it's been set to 1. If it's set to 1, we're going to go use that variable to start production. If it's not set to 1, where's that variable going to sit? In this queue right here. What's the maximum number that's ever going to be in that queue? 1. What's the minimum number? 0. Yep. Be 1 or 0 in that queue. Yeah.
If we set the customer demand at 50 under, now we are putting production at 1. So you think?
No, here's what's happening. So good question there. Austin says, well, we set the customer demand at 50 to 100. That means the customer, if I have 250 in inventory, they can come in and order 75, they can come in and order 100, they can come in and order 50. They can take whatever they want out of my stock as long as I've got enough in inventory. But production, we're not producing. This doesn't mean that we're producing 1. The production equals to 1 means we're either starting production when production is equal to 1, or we're not starting, or we're stopping production when production is equal to 0. Doesn't mean our batch size is 1. It means that we're turning production on and off. What is our batch size right now? 5. Our batch size is 5 right now. All right? So here's what we're going to do, is now we're going to go to a basic process, and this will probably get me in trouble because I'm doing it different than the way I did it at home. But we're going to go into a basic process. We're going to do a seize delay release, and we're going to call this, I don't know what we're building here. We're going to call it, I called it packaging, which is a strange name. That's what the book uses. We're going to call this manufacturing. Again, will probably get me in trouble, but that's fine. And what we will do is we will add a resource called manufacturing cell. We only have one of them. Okay, this could be whatever. This could be filling bottles. It could be, packaging Scotch tape. Could be whatever you're going to do. We're just going to call it manufacturing cell, and we're going to give it a uniform. So I'll do an expression. Another thing that came up today too. A couple people asked me. They came into here and they said, "Hey, I don't see Expo." That's fine. You always have expression available, and then if you go to down here to expression, you have all your various things available. And for us, we're going to use a uniform, and we're going to produce these at uniform 1020 minutes. I need to change this to minutes. So we're going to produce some uniform 1020 minutes. Okay, so seize delay release. My resource is a manufacturing cell. I have one of them. My process name is manufacturing. My expression is in units of minutes, and my expression is uniform 1020. And I'm going to hit OK. Is everybody okay with that? All right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to use that. I'm actually going to kind of pull these a little closer together. I can wire them up if I want to. We're going to say every time it does one of these, it's going to add to inventory. So where our what was I looking for? What did I call that down there? Our demand management subtracted from inventory. Our production management is going to add to inventory. And what it's going to do is I'm going to use an assign block like this. And I'm going to call this, what did we call the other one? Reduce inventory? What should we call this one? Add inventory? I like that. Add inventory. And what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we'll create, we've already got an inventory variable, so we'll use the inventory variable that we have, and we'll say, now any ideas? Not +1. Not +5. Plus the batch size, right on. So we're going to go inventory.
Expression builder.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to do it, is to right click on the new value, go to build expression, and then go to variable, current value, and it'll be inventory plus batch size. So now the neat thing about that is I know you guys haven't seen the process analyzer. We'll see that tonight. But when you look at the process analyzer, we can then plug things in for inventory and batch size. And what we'll see is that sawtooth. Everybody know what a sawtooth looks like? When I'm producing, I'm sloping up. When I'm consuming, I'm sloping down. It'll be a little sawtooth that you'll get every time an inventory changes. You'll have the sawtooth pattern. The upslope will be adding to inventory. The downslope of the sawtooth will be taking away from inventory. And what we'll be able to do is play around in the process analyzer with batch sizes, with reorder points, with target stocks, and we'll be able to determine the optimal values that we want to use without running the model 100 times, because it'll run it as many times as we want in the process analyzer. So that's what I'm going to use, inventory plus batch size. Hit OK. Boy, I pasted it right in there for you. That's kind of nice. But I'll tell you what, I've learned more about Arena. I should be paying you guys. All right, hit OK. You guys like that idea?
Yeah.
I'm going to hit OK again. I'm going to add inventory. I'm going to wire that guy up. And then the next thing I'm going to do, okay, I'm adding inventory now, right? At what point should I shut down production? When I've reached big R. Yep, you guys got it dead on. As soon as I reach big R, I want to shut down production. So what I need to go to is, which block am I going to use? Decide block, absolutely. I'm going to grab a decide block. I'm going to place it here. And I'm going to call this, you could call it check. Well, you don't want to call it check inventory because we already used check inventory. So I'm going to call it check target. And I apologize, I can never remember. There are things in Arena where you're allowed to use the same name twice, and there are times in Arena when you're not allowed to use the same name twice. So it's just a good idea to make sure that you're trying to give everything a unique name so you don't end up breaking some of the rules. It'll tell you. But check target, and we're going to look to see, we'll do a two-way by condition, and we'll do an expression. And I love this thing where I right-click. So two-way by condition, and we're going to do an expression, and we're going to build it, and we're going to say, I know I'm going to be dealing with variables here. Current value of inventory, right? So current value of inventory should be what? Yeah, greater than or equal to, what's it called? Target stock. Just like that. We want our inventory to be greater than or equal to our target stock. Okay? Could be greater than, I don't care, or equal to, doesn't make a difference. But in our model, we're doing greater than or equal to the target stock. I hit OK. Paste it in there for me. Okay. Now, we'll come over here a little bit. What do you suppose I'm going to do if my inventory is bigger than the target stock? I'm going to stop production. How am I going to do it? I'm going to set the production variable to 0. Exactly. I'm going to go to the assign block. And I'm going to call this exactly what it is. I'm going to call it stop production. And I'm going to add variable production. I'm going to set it to a 0. So I'll show you that one more time because that went pretty quick. So I did a new assign block. I called it stop production. I added this variable. I went into select the production variable, and I'm going to set it to the value of 0 is what I'm going to do there. I hit OK. If I'm not stopping production, what should I do? I should loop, yeah. So if this is false, how far back do I want to loop?
Manufacturing.
Manufacturing. Yeah, so if I'm not stopping production, I loop back to manufacturing. So for the false case, if I have not reached my target stock, I need to go back and continue manufacturing. I need to continue looping back through the manufacturing process. I think you'd have been fine to loop back to shall we produce, but there is no need because that's asking the same question. We know that our production variable has not been set to a 0. It's still at a 1. So we might as well just do that. Now, on the other side of the equation, though, if we are setting the production variable to 0 here to stop production, what am I going to do with this output here? Can't dispose of it. I don't want to dispose of it because I only have one entity to loop it back. How far back is he going to loop?
Shall we produce?
Shall we produce? Oh my God, that's ugly. All right, so yeah. You know what you can do? You can do something like this if you want. Oop, don't do that. By all means, don't do that. There you go. That, oh geez. That's a little better. Yeah, you can do freeform lines too. I kind of like how it snaps them. This works though. So basically I get to this check target, and if the inventory is greater than or equal to the target stock, I stop production. I go back here and wait. I wait and I continue to scan the production variable, looking for it to turn back on. Now what's going to turn it back on is my demand management down below. Okay, that's what's going to turn it back on. All right, so before we take a couple minute break, it'd be a good idea for us to kind of zoom out for a minute. Oh, it would be an even better idea to hit save. I really like that idea. Maybe zoom out a little bit. I'm going to go like 40%. I want to try to see as much of the screen as I can here. You can also, if you want, you can also move some things around. You know, move it so it's closer together so you can see more of it at once. Isn't a bad idea. Clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to slow this down and go to run and see what happens. Oh, nice.
Cool. Same thing I got.
Processing counters. Amount lost was already used in instance 16 of variables. Defining two or more names with different meanings is ambiguous and could cause execution errors. So I'm going to guess that this amount lost here is being used somewhere else. I'm going to delete this record block for right now. Really, the only reason why I showed you that record block was I wanted to show you could do it two different ways. We know that we're already tracking it. So to delete that record block, we don't lose anything. I would do one or the other. I would either track amount lost with a variable in the assign block, or I would track it with the tally in the record block. Let's see if that makes any difference. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Now, the one thing I would like to add here, so we're producing right now. Produce. I don't have a stopping point right now. But here's what I would like to do, just to give you guys an idea. I think a nice thing to include on something like this would be a graph. So let's go ahead and do a histogram. Oh, and histograms are always fun, right? So let's go in here. And what I want to track is inventory. Because inventory is going to be a nice thing just to be able to see in here. Or actually, I don't want a histogram. What do I want? That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a plot. Excuse me. I'm sorry, guys. Instead of a histogram, pick a plot. Yeah, make sure you hit stop. And then once you're stopped, you can go into plot. You can still grade on your plots. You might have to go into to view toolbars and make sure that you have animate, template, arrange view, draw. You got all of those on? Okay. You still don't see these up here? It's what? Is it good? Okay. Go to plot. Data series, we're gonna grab the let's see. Series, we can call it inventory. Level maybe. And then what I want to do down here is under expression, I just want to grab the inventory variable. Okay. And I prefer, it's in my mind, I would prefer to lock in my axes. And if you guys remember, we've done this before, right? It's been a while. So inventory level, the expression is inventory. I'm going to come down here and let's see. Oh, you know what? We got to go to axes. And for the left, I can turn off the right axis. So the axes tab. So the data series, I did inventory level. The expression was inventory. Then I went to axes. I turned off the right axis. Left on the left and the x-axis both. And then I'm going to come down here. And for my scale of my left y-axis, let's do the left y-axis first. For my scale of that, I'm going to do a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 600. Why do you think I picked those? Because my big R was, I think, 500, wasn't it? My little r was like 150, and maybe it'll get down to 0. So I want to lock those in, and I want to turn off the auto scale. I don't want auto scale. I want to go from 0 to 600. You can do major increments. Maybe you do those in 50.
Which auto scale are you on? Maximum?
I'm on left axis here.
Yeah.
And then I scrolled down to where it says scale. I made my minimum 0.
Yeah.
My maximum 600.
Which auto scale are you making?
This one, oh, you know what? I don't know what the difference is between those. Make them both false.
Well, one's minimum, one's maximum.
Yeah, make them both false. So no auto scales. And you might even make this major increment 100, because you can see that they're kind of stacking together. That looks a little better. I don't mind the x-axis being on auto scale, but I'd like to see the full scale when I'm going up and down. I think it makes sense. So just the left axis is what we changed. Minimum 0, maximum 600, major increment 100, minor increment 0, false, false, false. And then once you have that set up,
Mine's different than yours.
are you on left axis here?
Left value y-axis.
Yep. And you went to the axes tab?
Yep.
Can make that wider too, Jason.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, mine went down first.
What do you mean?
The graph looks different.
Show me real quick. Oh, that doesn't matter. Yeah, that doesn't matter. We don't have any data in there yet. Yeah, so we don't have any data in. This is just a sample plot. So we don't have any data in there yet, so don't worry about it. Go ahead and hit OK. And then you got to draw that plot in. I'm going to draw it right here. Ooh. Yeah, I would probably like to turn off that, but it's okay. You know, you can make it as big as you want. I'll make it a little bit bigger if I can. Maybe I'll move it over here even. Give myself extra room here. So now I can I'll be able to get a gauge on what my inventory is doing as I run this. So if I go here, you can see that we used up some inventory. As soon as we dip below 150, what did it start to do? Started to go in production. Okay. Now, good, bad, and different. You know, we want to minimize the amount of work in process we have, but good, bad, and different. It looks like we're keeping up with demand. We don't have any idle time on manufacturing. It looks like we're always manufacturing, as can be seen up there. So here's what I want to do real quick. I'm going to pause this. I want you guys to go ahead and take about a 10-minute break. So we're going to start up at 25 after.
Are you paused?
You're not paused.
No, I'm not. That's fine. We're going to start up about 25 after, and we'll go into the process analyzer. I need a good 25 minutes for the process analyzer. All right, so now what we're going to do is we want to run this thing to completion. And because one of the things you guys have started to notice already in this class is when you run a model to completion and you've saved everything, it creates a lot of extra files. We haven't used a lot of those files yet. So what I want to do is for this time, let's go to Run Setup. Let's make this thing run. Oh, let's see. What did I do? I did a million minutes is what I did. 1,000,000. 1 million minutes. I left my base time units in hours. It does make the run go a little bit quicker if you do the base time units in hours. So I'll do a 1,000,000-minute replication length. The time units are going to be in minutes. The base, or excuse me, yeah, 1,000,000 minutes. The base time units I'm going to leave in hours, and I'm going to run for 24 hours a day. So hopefully you guys get those 4 parameters set up the way mine is. Hit apply, hit OK. Then what I want you to do is go ahead and let your model run, and I want you to let it run to completion. Okay? See how it went down to 0 for a second there? I want you to let it run to completion. So we got to run 1,000,000 minutes. I don't know how long is 1,000,000 minutes. So like 15,000 hours or something. Do some quick math here. Divide by 60. Yeah, it's 16,000 hours. Maybe we don't want to watch it run like that. Maybe we want to speed it up a little bit. Or better than that, let's not even do that. Let's stop it. And how can I do it without running it? Go to Run, Run Control, and go to No Animation. Click on where it says No Animation. And now when you go to run, it's just going to shoot to the end. It's going to say, it's ran to completion. Would you like to see the results? Yes.
Run under run control.
Yeah, you went to Run, Run Control,
There.
and then when you clicked on Batch Run, No Animation, now it's going to run to completion. That's not, it's not, I don't care that much about the report. But what we need to do is, in order to use the process analyzer, you have to let your model run to completion, or you cannot use the process analyzer. So the process analyzer, when you run to completion, if you look at this slide, you generate all of these other things: the .opw, the .out, the .pan, the .p file. You're going to generate all these other files. This .p file is the thing we need. We need the .p file to use the process analyzer, or we just can't use it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into Arena. I'm going to close out the report. I'm going to hit stop. And then what I want you to do is real quick, let's go to Tools, Process Analyzer. So we've used the Input Analyzer. We've used the, well, I guess that's all we've used. We've done the Simon modeling. We've used the Input Analyzer. We'll use the Process Analyzer. Next week, we'll use the Visual Designer. We've used the Expression Builder. Go to the Process Analyzer. Okay? It's going to bring up a whole separate interface to your model. Okay? What we need to do, I'm going to go into my Arena file real quick and just find out where this thing's saved. You may want to do the same thing. I've got a folder, ING4210, where all my Arena files are. Go to Date Modified, and I can see in here, there's my inventory management model. There's my .opw file, which we haven't used. There's my .p file. There's my axis file and my .out file. Okay. Right now, I want to be able to use inventory management.p. Whatever your file name was, it's going to be the .p version of that. So when I go back in to my process analyzer, I'm going to go to New. Don't use the backup. Use the one that you hopefully you saved, or you may want to, yeah. So I'm going to go to New, and it's going to bring up a new scenario, is what it's going to do. And what we're going to do is we're going to double click to make your scenario. We'll call this scenario 1. I'm just going to leave the names as they are. But what I need to do is I need to browse to my .p file. So I go to Browse, and I go to Date Modified. There's my inventory management.p. See it there?
Mm-hmm.
Oop. Inventory management.p. Double click on it. Hit OK. That's going to become my program file for scenario 1. Okay? That's going to become my program file for scenario 1. Now, what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to add some controls and I'm going to add some responses. So I'm going to right click right here, right where it says reps. I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert a control. I'll do that again. Right where it says reps, I'm going to right click and I'm going to insert a control. And then under my controls, I've got a lot of different controls, but the things that I want to play around with are things like batch size. So will be one of my controls. Then I'm going to right click and add another control. And now I'm going to add in reorder point. And then I'm going to right click, add another control. And I'm going to call this one target stock. So now I can play around with these variables. I can actually adjust them and run through scenarios. Now what I would want to see though, what would be important for me to see is if I'm losing customers. I don't want to have 500 things in inventory if I don't need to. Why is that? Inventory is what? Inventory costs money. If I produce it and I can't sell it, I would much rather than pushing inventory into stock, I would much rather have the right amount of inventory to meet the demand, but not lose customers. So I can play around with batch size, reorder point, and target stock now to determine the optimal values. So now I'm going to right click here, and instead of adding a control, I want to get a response. And that response will be lost. Because I think that's, well, I can't remember if we called it amount lost or lost. Well, you know what? I'll add both of them. I'm going to add amount lost, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to add another response called lost. Okay?
Then you go back to and get an inventory management batch size.
Yep, so I right clicked, I created a control,
You click insert control.
insert control, and then I went to user specified, I select batch size. And then I right clicked and I inserted a control. I went to user specified and I called this one reorder point. Then I right clicked, I went to insert control, user specified, target stock. And then controls are your inputs, responses are your outputs. So then I right clicked and I inserted a response, user specified, amount lost, then a response, insert a response, user specified, lost. I don't remember what the difference was, but we'll look at both of them. Then I can double click, add another scenario, and I can change things. Maybe I say, well, you know what? Instead of reordering at 100, let's reorder at 25, and let's do a batch size of 10, and let's have a target stock of 100. So I have a lot less in inventory. So rather than having all this work in process, maybe I can go down to that, and just by increasing my batch size, I can try that. Or I could add another scenario. And I could say, okay, well, let's do a batch size of 25 with a reorder point of 10 and a target stock of 75. Okay? All right, double click and add a fourth scenario with a batch size of 1, a reorder point of 10, and a target stock of 50. What do you suppose is going to happen down in that bottom one? I'm going to have all kinds of trouble. Why? Customers are going to be coming in and ordering 50, right? And I'm going to lose people like, I would imagine, I'm going to lose people like it's going out of style. But what this allows you to do now is run multiple scenarios at the same time, varying your variables from this process analyzer viewpoint. We're not even going to, guess what? We're not even going to run Arena. We're not going to run your Simon model at all. What we're going to do is we're going to come in here, set these variables to where I want them, and figure out what the loss is going to happen. So now I have a run button here, and before you hit that, highlight all 4 of these scenarios. Just all you got to do is move over the top one and drag down. Okay, don't want to add a fifth scenario. You go to run. It says, you want to run all these selected ones? Absolutely. Hit OK. Save changes, sure. I'll call this my, and this may be I'm just going to call it, what was it called? Inventory management. Process testing. I hit save, and now this thing is it's gonna run. Boom, 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 boom. And I can see, holy cow, my best model was when I was 100 and 500. My amount lost was 189. My lost was 2. What's the difference between amount lost and lost? Lost is customers. So that will always be an integer. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to get amount lost to be a decimal, but it did. But it is okay. It's fine. But what I determined in looking at this was what? That none of these scenarios I did down here were very good, were they? They were horrible. So now I could say, well, I don't need to have 500 in stock. Maybe I want to vary my variables a little bit different. So I can go to run and go to reset. And it's going to reset everything. And now I can say, instead of a batch size of, 5 with a reorder point of 100, maybe I can do a batch size of 10 with a reorder point of 100 and a target stock of 400. Maybe I can do a batch size of 10 with a reorder point of 100 and a reorder point of 300. Maybe I can do 10 with a reorder point of 100 and a target stock of 200. So now I have a lot less in inventory. I could even add a response for total number work in process or total inventory. I could do this. I could say, I think I could. We'll find out. I could insert a response, and I think I could look at inventory. And you might even be able to find a way to look at average inventory. But now I can look at inventory too. And I can again highlight all 4 of these. Go to run all 4 scenarios. And it's telling me, look, if you go to a batch size of 10 with a reorder point of 100 and target stock of 400, I don't lose any customers and I don't lose any orders. That's a good thing, right? But I also see I can go all the way down to 200 and I still don't order anything. And notice the difference in inventory. Inventory's money. So if 128's in inventory, that's a lot less money I have tied up in inventory than 435. And I'm actually losing less customers by just increasing the batch size and changing my target stocks. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Yeah. And guess what? You're not rerunning the model 600 times. You can do as many scenarios as you want and build this however you want to do it and determine what that's going to be. The neat thing, this is why we do this last. You can't teach this first. You've got to understand the visual designer and the process analyzer are the tools you'll actually use. If you're out in industry and programming simulation modeling, the tools you're going to use are the visual designer and the process analyzer. You're not going to, you may show the animation to some sort of management so they understand how things flow. But odds are, once they've seen that once, then you can bring this up and say, look, all we have to do is bring this down. Now, there may be scenarios where it's not going to work anymore. As an example, I come down here and I say, well, if this is working, what if I go to a batch of 10 and I go to 100 and 150? Am I going to lose any there? I don't know. So I go and I highlight all of them again. I go to run and I see if I'm going to lose anything here. No, not too shabby, huh? Okay. But I might find out that, hey, I just got word from manufacturing, they can't do a batch size of 10. They can only do batch sizes of 5. I say, okay, well, let me see what happens if I go back to 5 on this. Can I change my other numbers? They say, you know what? We'd have to totally retool the system to do this. And maybe instead of changing the batch size, maybe my reorder point just goes, 150 to 400, or 200 to 300, or 100 to 200, or 100 to 150. And now I go back and I run this all over again. My goal here is to minimize the inventory and not lose customers. And you can see that there's some optimal solution here. I can't do 5, 100, 200. I lost 16 customers and 1,460 units ordered. I can't go to 100, 150. I lost 800 units and 9. And my inventory was 107. Right now, it would appear my optimal solution kind of doesn't make sense to me because the target stock's 400, but my inventory is actually less if I go down to 150 and up to 400, because I don't lose customers and I consume or I maintain my inventory to the least value that I possibly can.
Why don't you target stock different than inventory? I mean, I know your inventory is going to be going up and down
Mm-hmm.
with you making it, but you are starting your inventory at 100, and then you want it to be at 500. So your process should start right away as soon as the.
Yeah, absolutely. And this model's a little goofy too, because what did we do? We started our initial inventory at 250, and then even down here we never went above 250 again, which was kind of strange. Target stock though, the idea there is that customers are coming randomly distributed. I don't know when they're coming, so I need to start production and ramp it up, expecting that they're going to start killing off my inventory. If batch size is a non-issue, I've got a lot more features I can play with here. But if manufacturing says, well, batch size is 5 unless we order more equipment, then I'm stuck with that. Then I can play with these two and come up with the optimal solution. We're not even considering all the variables here too. The other thing a lot of people will do is they'll create another variable and they'll call it work in process cost. And they'll take inventory and multiply it by the amount that it costs for each item that's stored as a unit in inventory. And then they'll look at that as a dollar sign instead of looking at it as a number. Because this inventory number right here, guess what? It's a little bit bogus because it's not the average inventory. What do you suppose that inventory variable is? That's the final inventory. So you may, and a couple of you guys have been playing around with some of the other variable library items like d-average. I would guess there'd be a way to look at average inventory over the life of it. That'd be another thing that you could look at too, which would be a better variable to look at than this. But I have no idea if I answered your question. I think I kind of answered your question. The answer is what you can't do. What you really wouldn't want to do is produce one every time one is ordered. That's that R equals big R minus little r or whatever. That would be, or little r equals big R minus 1. That would be a bad example of how to do this, because depending on what your production time is, your manufacturing time, you may be getting customers extinguishing your system prior to you being able to put out that next batch. So
if you were to go back to your model and change it,
mm-hmm.
you have to reopen this?
You do, yeah. So once you've saved your model, not only do you have to save your model, you have to let it run to completion to generate a new .p file. Otherwise, you can't do this. Now, I want to show you guys one thing, because we're pushing the end of class here. There is one thing that's important for you guys to see right now, and this video will be online. I'm kind of happy that this worked out. But the process analysis homework, here it is, worksheet 12. Okay, create a simple model as shown below. I actually give you the model. Okay, patient arrivals, nurse check-ins, resource name, quantities, the doctor treatments, all of those are built in. Run the simulation, save it, run it to completion to generate your .p file. Use the process analyzer, insert different resource combinations to see which combination of doctors and nurses minimizes your number in queue for the doctor treatment queue and your number in queue for the nurse check-in queue to less than 2. Add a chart that shows all your scenarios, and you'll submit both of these as in your renal model space. So your renal model space with this in there. Actually, more than that. Your arena model space and your .pan file is what I would like to see. Your PAN, your P. So that the arena model space is your arena file. I'd like that. The .p file is what's generated when you run to completion. That's the statistical data we use for the process analyzer. But now if you went back in and looked, now that you've done some process analyzation, any process analyzation you've done is saved as a .pan file. That's a process analyzer file. So this is your arena model space. You run that to completion, you generate a .p. You run the .p inside your process analyzer, and you'll get a .pan file. So we're getting a lot of different files. If you forget about that, just submit everything that you get for that, and that'll be good enough. The big thing, though, is I really want to see, I really would like to be able to see the scenarios that you ran. 1 doctor, 2 doctor, 3 doctor, 4 doctor with 1 nurse, or 1, 2, 3, 4 with 2 nurses, 3 nurses. You can do all the different combinations. You won't have to go very far, but what you'll see is those cues will change dramatically when you change those doctor and nurse controls. So pretty cool stuff. But sound good? That's all I got for you guys. Any questions? Yes, I can. Guess what, guys? You know what we did tonight? We took the training wheels off of Arena tonight. is what we did. I am still recording.